So, welcome to the Karsh and FS show, which is actually called Pointless Stories, but honestly, I like the Karsh and FS show better. It's just that some of our close friends took that away from us. कभी ना कभी तो लौट आएंगे. But this is season 2, episode 8. Maybe this one's a little bit more light-hearted. I don't want to get too preachy. But where do you want to start this one, man? Like, I'm completely... it's like we have nothing to foray into, and that's kind of trouble for people like us, because कहीं भी जा सकते हैं.
ये तो है यार, but if you don't mind, I wanted to circle back a little bit to like law and crime and that kind of general area of
Yes, sir.
area of study slash entertainment slash like research.
Let's go.
Because you can look at it from all three of those angles,
Yeah, I agree. It's a good waste of time, like walking.
No doubt. But what are you thinking of these like Virginia like law school videos?
Oh, nice. So it's been a journey, cause like पिछले हफ्ते के बाद यार आपने तो recommend की थी. So I started watching University of Virginia Law School videos on. I started with contract law and the introduction video of law school. So by now 46.
Those are both very good ones, man.
Yeah, and got into tort law, and criminal law is actually what, like you say, it's quite a little bit more interesting because the rest is kind of vanilla. I sat through all those courses and I thought, one of the challenges that I think, even though हम मानते हैं कि हम वकालत अच्छे करते हैं, the kind of really tricky aspect to being a lawyer is to be able to think of all the possible outcomes or what could have happened, कि हम यार एक तरफे से, like, I agree that if we were lawyers we'd be very high respected, we don't care if the client's guilty, right? But it's very hard to look at it in terms of all the possibilities that could have happened. So even when I was listening to the lectures and the students kind of responding as to what they could do or what they see this as and the analytical skills, I really feel like I was lacking. So मैंने सोचा कि जैसे आपने कहा T14, तो मैंने पूरे list को पढ़ ली, and University of Virginia is up there. But there's a few good law schools across the country, and I looked through like the college requirements. So most of them require, like a 3.9 GPA or higher, and an LSAT score of 170 and higher, which is out of 180. Yeah. So
that's fucking crazy.
So, and that's just like the basic requirement. उसके बाद तो यार personality भी होना काफी, like you can't be, मैं हमेशा यार जब jobs के लिए apply करता हूँ ना, I feel like मेरे सबसे बड़ी कमी यह है कि I'm a straight male, right? You can never employ me for like any kind of diversity aspects, कि हम जिस तरह की वैसे जो हमारे एथनिकल बैकग्राउंड है वो भी यार काफ़ी है, कि वैसा स्टीरियोटिपिकल कि कभी डाइवर्सिटी हायर नहीं हो सकते. मैं कभी ये वो वेटरन वाला और हैंडीकैप वाले सेक्शन में भी काफ़ी वक्त गुजरता हूँ कि सोचता हूँ कि यार मैं क्यों इतना ठीक हूँ, मगर यार if you think of it, like people like us would really have to not just have a 3.9 and a 170, we'd also have to have a very tragic story to be able to get into a T14 school, कि काफ़ी लिमिटेड सीट्स होते हैं. तो मैंने सोचा LSAT लेते हैं भाई, कि we've seen Suits and we've seen how Mike takes the LSATs for people and how he's perfect at it. तो मुझे पता ही नहीं कि इसकी फॉर्मेट क्या था या कैसे कितने वक्त मिलते हैं या कैसे तरीके से क्वेश्चंस होते हैं. मैंने सिर्फ ली कि बंदा तो फारिग था भाई, कि मेरे एक सुबह तो फारिग था, मीटिंग के लिए इंतज़ार कर रहा था. तो मैंने सोचा ठीक है, 3 सेक्शन होते हैं, इट्स लाइक 35 minutes each I think, so I had that much time. और हम उतना वक्त भी इस्तेमाल नहीं करते, जो 3 घंटे के एग्ज़ाम है हम तो 1 घंटे में करते भाई. तो और ये बड़ी बुरी बात है कि हमारी यूनिवर्सिटी में एक रूल हुआ करता था कि you couldn't leave before an hour and 15 minutes, right? तो अगर मैं तो यार फेल हुए या कुछ लिखा भी नहीं, फिर भी मैं 1 घंटा और 15 minutes के बाद वहाँ नहीं रहता है, कि मेरे लाजिम है कि मैं लौट जाता हूँ, कि उसकी मैं कभी 3 घंटा बैठा ही नहीं भाई। तो इट्स नॉट लाइक कभी हम काफ़ी फास्ट है भाई मगर एक्यूरेट नहीं। तो पता नहीं कभी
बिल्कुल।
कभी बिल्कुल गलत निकलता है। मगर I took the LSAT Thursday and I scored a stupendous 60 out of 180, which is 1/3, which means I got every I got one in every three correct. Yeah, so काफ़ी poor performance था, तो मैंने सोचा कि क्यों, and that's when I kind of started thinking of the format of LSAT questions. Now even though you're like an finance major, our kind of entry towards university was based on the SATs, and the SATs are a little bit more different because they kind of test. I think they've got English, they've got math, and what else do they have? Science. I'm not sure.
Well, the SATs,
Yeah.
the SAT ones are just math and English, but then the SAT twos are when all the science subjects come in.
Yeah, so just to show off, yeah, I had 2310 on both. So मुझे लगता था यार हम एक ज़माने में काफ़ी कामयाब थे। तो
Come on, bro. That's actually insane, though, man. 2310?
Yeah.
Wait, on SAT1 as well?
Huh? Yeah, but
on SAT1, because SAT1 is the really hard one.
Yeah,
man,
yeah. SAT
but that was out of 2400, right?
2400. Yeah.
Because it was each section was 800. So there was maths, which was arts के होते थे. फिर उसके अलावा there was like reading, which was 800.
Yeah.
फिर there was writing, which was 100.
Yeah, the essay was. Do you remember we took the SATs together?
Yeah, dude, at Birla, right?
हाँ यार, और वो सेक्शन की दरमिया ब्रेक होता था, और ऐसे के पहले यार मैंने आपसे मिले, और मतलब मुझे पता नहीं कि सुबह मिले थे या दरमिया में मिले थे, मगर ऐसे की पहले मैंने आपसे ज़रूर मिला था। और आपसे बात करने के बाद यार मेरे ऐसे में इतना मैंने बात की ना कि जो आपसे कहना था मैं तो ऐसे में लिखती भाई, और काफ़ी अच्छे नंबर तो अच्छे निकले थे कि इंस्पिरेशन तो मिला। मगर यार ये भी बात है कि जो SAT-2 होता है तो उसमें हमारे इंजीनियरिंग के लिए तो फिज़िक्स केमिस्ट्री मैथ होता है। तो मैं पहले बार लिखा तो मुझे 2310 आ गए थे, और I wasn't happy. I wanted 2400s on the SAT-2, yeah? तो मैं दोबारा लिखा भाई, दोबारा लिखा 2310 आ गया, फिर भी नाराज़ हो गई। मैं सोचा इस बार मैं यार कुछ अलग करता हूँ, तो तीसरा बार लिखा और तब भी 2310 आ गई भाई। और मतलब इन सब के ब्रेकअप तो अलग है मगर टोटल तो सेम निकला। बट यार तो हमारे याद में हमारे SATs तो काफ़ी अच्छे थे, मगर हमारे वक्त में सोचो कि SAT-2 तो आप कंपेयर नहीं कर सकते कि हमारे जो मेजर्स डिफरेंट है ये टेक्निकल होते हैं, मगर SAT-1 तो यार ऑलमोस्ट हर बंदे लेते हैं। तो SAT-1 की जो मैथ है और इंग्लिश सेक्शन है ये था हमारे जो थॉट प्रोसेस थे कि comprehension, writing, and math, right? Like basic stuff. But the LSAT is kind of structured differently in the fact that it's more, it's very hard. It's like I don't know if you've taken it, but to give you an example, it's like let's say you have 5 movies, right? Like your movie studio, you've got 5 movies, right? And they'll give you the name for 5 movies, and they'll say, this movie can't release before this, and this movie has to be released in between this and this, and this movie cannot be released back to back, right? So they'll give you like those conditions. Now, the problem is, now with those conditions, you cannot come to one unique answer, you've got a few possibilities. You've got like 3, 4, permutations that could be possible, right? Now, every question you kind of get like 5 minutes, right? Now it's very hard to really number down those permutations because it's reasoning, it's not math, like you have to apply this to, like, let's say 5 movies, and you've got you've got about 10 different permutations in which that could happen, right? Maybe I'm getting that wrong. Maybe you've got 25. No, you've got 10. So each of those you have to first list down and then, throw out the ones that don't satisfy these conditions. But you're still left with 3 or 4 that are right, yeah? And then they'll ask you like 5 questions where they'll ask you, this could be the list, or if this movie were to be released second, what could be released fifth, right? Which means you've got to have everything listed down. And so that kind of thought process is not something that I'm used to. और हर question उस तरीके से होता है. So I did really bad because at some point in time I stopped trying to figure out the permutations. I'm still not sure if there's only 10. Like, you've got 5 different variables. So
Dude, if it's 5,
yeah,
then I think it's going to be 5 times 4 times 3 times 2.
Yeah, 5
times 1.
5, what do you call it when you put the exclamation mark next to it?
Factorial?
Yeah. 5 factorial.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
20, 60,
that's
1.
from grade 11.
Dude, shit, there's 120 different combinations, yeah? That's 5
Yeah, I was going to
factorial.
say, that's a lot more than 10, bro.
God damn it. So I never figured out 120. Like, you don't have the time to figure out the 120 permutations, right? But then you also can't figure out one right answer and like answer based on that, because you could be wrong, So
sure.
that I still don't know the answer to this. I'm काफी नालायक है, मगर like I'm still surprised I got 60. But I would definitely not make it to U Virginia, man.
नहीं यार मैं भी नहीं यार मैं तो ये this type of question I would always be bad at them. Like, I've taken a few logic questions before.
Yeah.
I think I took maybe like a mock exam for the LSAT maybe a long time ago. तो इस तरह के questions के मैंने देखे हुए हैं. पता नहीं if it was this one or if I take them as part of like a logic test or like an IQ test, but even an IQ test, right? The logic questions are often like the kinds that you would see in an LSAT, I think.
Yeah.
Like, where a lot of it is just like reasoning and you have to like, just be very analytical and look at it like in all the different ways that you can look at it.
Yeah.
And, yeah, man, it's insane. It's insanely hard. And I don't know how you could even get 170 because, bro, like, SATs, don't get me wrong, they are hard.
Yeah.
And, like, the fact that you got a 2310 is insane, man. I'm just going to say, because, what's his name, bro? Ben Bernanke.
Yeah, that is not a name I've heard in a long time. Ben Bernanke,
yeah. Me neither, bro. It's been years since I heard that name. I was trying to I almost forgot, but yeah, dude. Federal Reserve is obviously like very prestigious in America. You know, like if you've worked at the Federal Reserve, it's like it's a huge deal. It's like you control like the U.S. dollar basically. You know what I mean? Like it's a very powerful institution, and if you're head of the Federal Reserve, like that's a huge fucking deal,
True.
So that was him, right? So you'll see like all Federal Reserve chairmen, like all of them have a very similar profile. Like they all went to Harvard or Princeton or MIT.
They
all have doctorates in economics. Like they're very very like cream of the crop, you could say, and he, man, got a 2400 on his SAT, or like a 1600, because back then
it was 1600.
Yep. Only 2 sections back then. I think it's back to it's the same now again, right? They removed writing.
I think so. Yeah.
So, he got a perfect score, like a 1600. And you were pretty close to that, bro. Like, so you're like. I would see you up there with like Bernanke.
No, यार काफी फर्क है भाई कि मैं तो उसकी साथ तो कोई भी दे सकते हैं, उसकी बात हार्वर्ड नहीं गए ना तो
नहीं, लेकिन फिर भी यार ऐसा स्कोर बहुत कम लोगों का आता था. I'm telling you, man. Like, but dude, you could have easily gotten into like Berkeley, UC Berkeley, for example, UCLA. Like if you applied there, Michigan, like these are really good schools where. And those are not bad schools, like Berkeley might not be Harvard, but it's like it's nothing short of Harvard, man. It gives like it's definitely out there with it, you know.
हाँ मानता हूँ यार, मगर जो बात है ना कि पहले तो अप्लाई करने ज़रूर है, तो मैंने अप्लाई नहीं की. दूसरी बात यह है कि जो LSAT है यार कि you know the SAT is like out of 2400, but I think each one's about 10 points. But the LSATs, each question is 1 point, you know. So if you get 170 out of 180, that means you got 10 wrong, right? 10 questions on the entire exam, which is like pretty much hard to do, except if you give it perfectly, right? And the thing is, most of the T14, they need you to get like 176, 178, you know, not 170. 170 is like the bare minimum, you know what I mean?
Are you serious,
I'm not joking.
bro?
You can get
What
like
the
4,
fuck?
yeah, dude, you can get 4 questions wrong. Can you imagine? Like, otherwise you're out. If you get 4 wrong and everything else is right, that means you have a chance. That's how hard it is.
Bro, that's actually insane, man. I had no idea it was that rigorous.
Yeah.
Like, I knew that, man, like the top of those schools, like if you said Harvard Law, right?
Yeah.
Like, I would know, man, that's going to just be some insane requirements. Like, even the base requirements are going to be insane.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's like that for all top 14 schools, like even the ones like that are maybe 13, 14, the fact that even those are like just equally competitive in terms of like what you need, the skills you need to have, and the profile you need to have. 3.9 GPA, and that's like what they call like summa or magna cum laude, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's just insane, man. Because like 3.9, man, even no matter what major you've done in undergrad, like obviously most of them are like, they're usually political science majors, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the most common, they call it pre-law in the States. Right, they need a bachelor's degree to do a JD.
Yeah.
And most of them, they do political science. And granted, it's not hard, like if you're well-spoken, if you're like thoughtful and like are able to write well and you're articulate, and you know you have strong like writing and presentation skills, it's not hard to get a 4. It's not as hard to get a 4.0 in political science as it would be in say like, you know, engineering or like you know. Like it is attainable, but even then, man, that's hard enough in the first place to maintain that over 4 years, you know, 3.9. And on top of that, bro, the LSAT with like 176, bro. Can you fucking imagine?
No. And यार ये भी बात है कि like one of the things that really annoys me is both pre-law and pre-med. It shouldn't be a requirement, you know. Why should you have a bachelor's degree in something else before you come and do, you know, either med school or law school? It really bothers me. Why can't you just go direct into it?
I think, you know, I can't speak to med school because I don't know much about it. But for like, for law, you know, you're right. I mean, I guess like... because in many jurisdictions you can just go to law directly, right? Exactly. Like in India, you don't have to. You know, you don't have to do. You can do like a bachelor's in law, like right after, right straight out of high school, right? But it's a good question, man. I wonder how it is in the UK. I want to say even in the UK, you can go straight after high school, actually. They have LLBs there. Yeah, they have an LLB, the same exact degree, you know?
Exactly,
I don't know, man. The US, to be fair, though, the US legal system, man, is, like, very, very competitive. True. And I think they want to see that, like, because GPA, man, it might not be a perfect indicator of, like, you know, like how good you are at something, but I think it is a measure of like focus and consistency. Because to get like a 4.0, right? Like it means that over the course of 4 years, like you consistently met expectations that you were asked to meet, you know? So it does. Right. It does mean something, you know, like it's not something we can write off as like, you know, as meaningless.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's say you got a 3.9, right? So it's like the unis, they already know that this is a guy who for 4 years like had to meet like specific requirements, and they were able to meet them consistently over the course of 4 years, you know.
मानता हूँ मगर हाई स्कूल का भी जीपीए है भाई कि वो भी 4 साल किया कर सकते हैं इस्तेमाल.
But high school तो लाना है bro, you know whatever.
यार आखिर में मुझे काफी टफ लगा था भाई.
यार हाँ नहीं, आपका तो वैसे मुश्किल था, सही बात है, पर यार यूनिवर्सिटी का तो अलग ही लेवल का मुश्किल होता है, you know what I mean?
मेरे यूनिवर्सिटी वाले जीपीए तो सुनकर यार आप तो जितने मेरी तारीफ की ना 2310 वाले सब निकल जाएंगे भाई.
नहीं यार, क्योंकि यार अब तो आप उस टाइम तक तो पहुंच ही गए थे, तो at that point your grades didn't really matter, और आपका ये कोई इरादा भी नहीं था कि you know I wanna like do like research in my field or graduate studies in my field, you know. So I wouldn't really give a fuck either, you know, because it's like आपने एक दफा कहा था कि you know my life changed for the better when I realized my grades weren't going to make any difference.
यार मैं ये कब कहा था मुझे भी याद है. मेरी बर्बादी की शुरू वहाँ से हुई भाई. It was when you were in college though, you know, by the time you got there you were like, you know, just my life changed for the better when I stopped, you know, caring about school and stopped, you know, studying and shit. I'm like, I can see that, you know, because काफी कुछ, you know, by that time you know that you're better off spending your time like building a network and, you know, getting to you know, making connections with people and putting yourself out there rather than just, you know, trying to get the best grades. मानता हूँ मगर मैं इतना मतलब भूल गया था कि पढ़ाई करने गए थे कि यार मुझे याद भी नहीं आया उसके बाद कि मुझे मसला ये है कि I don't just stop caring, I stop giving a shit altogether, you know. कि ये मसला है. But dude, honestly, like I get what you mean कि US law schools वो अगर ये रखना चाहते तो वो कर सकते हैं कि you know you can make law like a master's degree. I get what they're doing, but you know, like if you did study political science for 4 years, just as pre-law, it's a waste of 4 years, isn't it? It's a lot of student debt to go into. When really all you want to do is just go become a lawyer. And law school, by the way, is not very long. You know, for how much they have to learn, it's not really long. And I think that should honestly be longer. But it can't also be a bachelor's degree. I agree with that. Like LLB is not enough for a lawyer, even in like the UK or anything. Like a good lawyer, right? So I do kind of agree, but I don't like the idea of wasting, like, you know how long med school takes, right? And even law school, by the time you get out of it, you're pretty much through your mid-20s, you know? So
exactly, yeah.
It's too much, man.
No, I know what you mean, man. But I do think the JD is just so rigorous that, like, it's probably for that reason that they require you to have some kind of background, you know?
Yeah.
And to be honest, man, even if it's like a 4-year degree requirement, a lot of the students, they're able to complete their 4-year degree in 3 years.
Yeah.
Because remember, these are like the really exceptional kids, right? So chances are in high school itself, they took like AP classes or had like credits that they could use in college.
Yeah.
So many of them, man, when they come to college, right, they've already transferred enough credits to skip a whole year of college. So in practice, they end up going to school for like 3 years for like political science or sometimes economics. That's another common major with lawyers, you know, for pre-law. And it's like I think it does like train you, especially with like writing skills, you know, because legal writing is so complex that
Agreed.
Especially in a JD, right? I don't know what it looks like in a bachelor's, but in a JD, man, they have like a whole they do like research, like legal research, legal analysis, and legal writing. And I think to really be able to do that, you need to have some exposure to like just research, analysis, and writing in general, in like in a more like rigorous setting than just high school, you know. So like writing papers, for example, you know, I think that's a necessary first step before you get to like a program as rigorous as the JD. And those skills, man, you definitely learn, and even as part of a poli-sci degree, you know, and in fact, especially as part of like any liberal arts degree. Many lawyers are even like English majors, for example, you know, because law ultimately is just language, like, you know, like language is like really, like that's what all law is, right? It's all words, like, you know. So someone with like a good, you know, someone who's articulate, someone who can write articulately is like can be a good candidate for, you know, for law school. And it's also a major where you can get like where a 4.0 is attainable, you know. Like it's extremely, man, if you are like an electrical engineer, for example, you know, like to get a 4.0 in your program is just insanely hard, bro, you know. So yeah, but it does equip you with some of those skills that I think that you need as prerequisites for law school, you know.
It's kind of weird how, you know, none of the people we went to school with ended up being lawyers. It's quite weird, isn't it? But
yeah, man, it definitely is. But when you think about it, like, and this is one of the reasons even though I considered it for a long time, I decided against it. Because like, it's like, you know, unless you're going to like a T14 school, it's hard to have like a successful career in law. Because if you're going into law with the intention of making a lot of money, like your target should be T14, you know. Outside of that, it's going to be very hard to make it work. And the second is, man, if you look at job satisfaction, especially in the US, lawyers are consistently among the least satisfied with their profession. And I think a full majority of them say that, you know, if they had to do it over, they would go into a different career, which is so like sad, because imagine, man, spending all of those. We talked about 10,000 hours, man. Imagine how many hours it takes to prepare for the LSAT, to go through law school, to like get through law school and complete all of those requirements. In total, those 7 years, you know, like undergrad plus 2 years of law school. Think of the number of hours over that time you spent to like accomplish this, to get to that point where you can practice law, and not to mention passing the bar, man, which, you know,
which is another
like
thing.
You could. Which is another crazy fucking thing, you know, like it's so
law
fucking
school
hard.
and then still, you know, not make it.
Yeah, you could have a JD in your hand and like it would mean nothing. Like it would be completely meaningless. Because you haven't passed the bar and you can't practice law. So imagine all of those steps, like undergrad, you know, working hard in undergrad for 4 years, then 4.0 GPA, LSAT, law school, then the bar, and then when you finally get to practice, you're like, man, this sucks, and I wish I'd never done this.
ऐसे हारने के बाद यार बंदा तो कुछ नहीं कर सकते. Like हम भी इतना नहीं हारा भाई, but
इतना तो कभी नहीं हारे यार. ये तो शुक्र अदा करते हैं कि यार इतनी तो बुरी हमारी नहीं लगी है.
वाकई यार शुक्र अदा करने जरूर है. मगर
मुझे तो बहुत अफसोस होता है यार, because it's like they're so like dissatisfied as a group, right? Like obviously I'm sure there's attorneys who are very happy with what they do, and they're maybe like, you know, just like lucked out in a big way, but like as a whole, it's like the least satisfied profession, you know. And not to mention, man, it's not only like the time commitment and the emotional energy you invest, all the sacrifices you make. It's also like hundreds of thousands of dollars often in debt that they
I'm sure you reach like the 300 mark at that point.
Yeah, man, easily, you know, and because law school is expensive as shit,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's not
especially-
even including like
Yeah.
your undergraduate education, you know.
Exactly.
Man, in total, you've just spent like probably $500,000, you know, in total USD,
Yeah.
getting to this point in your career,
Just to
and then
fail
to
the
do all
bar.
of that. Yeah, and not just to clear the bar,
Yeah.
man, and like. Fuck, bro. It's just so depressing to think about that. And lawyers are very depressed, dude. Like, that's the thing. Because it doesn't seem like a fulfilling profession. Like, Suits makes it look very glamorous and exotic and, you know, like, very full of, like, action and, you know, excitement. And this is coming from, like, a lawyer friend himself, a guy who... He's an Islu, in fact, you know, he's like an Islu kid.
No way.
यार ये नैब वाला ही बंदा है यार.
वो है अच्छा भाई मगर वो यार पाकिस्तान की लॉयर है ना.
जी जी.
हाँ वो अलग बात है भाई.
लेकिन यार पाकिस्तान में मैं बताऊं इससे मेरी अपने वालिद साहब से भी बात हो रही थी इस पे कि maybe it's because in fact it is because Pakistan is so influenced by the UK, right?
Yeah.
But when you look at like their legal system, it operates very much, like not very much, but like the procedures and stuff on a procedural level.
Yeah.
It operates very much like the British legal system, you know. In obviously like it's like procedural because that's like a legacy of British rule there.
Yeah.
But हाँ यूके में जैसे ब्लास्फेमी गुस्ताखी पे वाजिबुल कत्ल नहीं होते आप वो सब तो अलग है.
हाँ यार ब्लास्फेमी लॉज कुछ और बात है भाई.
ये तो है यार वो तो यूके में नहीं है इस वक्त, you know.
यार वैसे कहीं भी नहीं है सिर्फ पाकिस्तान में.
But नहीं यार ऐसे lawyers हैं, you know, who are like prosecutors and stuff, you know, who do like very intense work there. But क्या कहते हैं यार जिससे यार क्या नाम था. Oh man, अस्मा बुखारी.
यार अस्मा बुखारी की यार मैं याद कर रहा था कि अली जफर की मैंने पॉडकास्ट सुना था तो अस्मा भी उसमें था मगर काफी
नहीं यार अस्मा जहांगीर मेरा bad.
अस्मा जहांगीर हाँ यार वही है वो फेमिनिस्ट वाला वुमेन्स राइट्स या
हाँ उसके अलावा यार she was like, you know, took a firm stance against Zia as well. तो इसके अलावा और भी
the death threats, yeah,
हाँ यार मतलब सारी इंसानी हुकूक के लिए, ना और तो खवातीन के लिए तो था ही उसका, you know.
हमने ये पॉडकास्ट पर भी डिस्कस किया था ना.
हाँ क्योंकि her daughter came on the podcast, the Pakistan Experience, and she's a journalist, you know, and she's done a lot in her own right, but then obviously people will think of her as, you know, Asma Jahangir's daughter.
But Asma Jahangir काफी आसान डिग्री है.
Yeah, डिग्री आसान है पर काम तो बहुत मुश्किल है, especially in Pakistan, bro, man. If you're a journalist, bro, you really need balls of steel, you know.
गायब हो जाता है.
अक्सर गायब हो जाते हैं यार, you know. क्योंकि नंबर 1 वाले बॉयज तो यार आपको गायब कर देते हैं, you know. But yeah, it's gotten to the point where now, man, people, there's so many people जो खुल के आप बोल रहे हैं, you know, आर्मी के खिलाफ, and you can't put that many people in prison, you know.
हाँ यार बहुत बदल गया.
So it's only people who are like very at the front lines of these things. Like Asma Jahangir went to prison. Tariq Ali, you know this guy, right? वो भी he's a very like well-spoken, very like accomplished writer, and like, you know, he was also on the front lines of like opposing Zia's rule. You know, these people, man. Even my buddy, bro, like he's super against Zia. You know, he even though he's like part of the establishment, like he you know, they're with NAB, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, he's very vocal against like the things that happen at Zia's time, because he comes from a family of lawyers, and you know, they look at it, the way they look at it is, man, everything that happened then was unconstitutional. And and yeah, man, from a lawyer's perspective, you know, especially like if you're a strong believer in, you know, like following, because even you must have seen this in Virginia law, right?
Yeah.
Like the introduction video, that there are different hierarchies even within law, right?
Yeah.
So you have like federal law and state law.
Yeah.
And at the very top, you have constitutional law, right?
Yeah. I was
so,
thinking
like, if something
of
is in the
constitutional law, yeah.
Yeah, it's at the very top, right? It trumps everything else, you know?
And it's something I'm very interested in. Like, a constitutional lawyer is somebody who's specialized in constitutional law is very rare. You see them in universities or on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And like, what's her name? RBG, you know?
Dude.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Like, even before I got into law and all this, before Suits, the two people I knew about and read about were Antonin Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg, like, she's a public icon, but also Sandra Bullock in 2 weeks' notice, you know, talks about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, so वहाँ से शुरू हो गई.
Oh man, that's powerful, bro. Like, but Native Ake, she is an icon, and you know, was an icon. My bad. You know, she did get some like some criticism, and I think some fair criticism for you know, like she's a lawyer, right? And she's a like was on the Supreme Court, and you know, someone who should be standing in favor of international law.
Yeah.
But then she did go to like the occupied West Bank, and you know, there was a lot of like, you know, critique back then, because it's like, you know, on the one hand, you know, you're someone who's on the forefront of like justice and like, you know, like law and what do you say, like upholding the Constitution and like doing things as according to the law. And on the other hand, like here you have, you know, violations of international law, and like that's not something you speak out against.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, as a Supreme Court justice, though, man, she's like the stuff she did was insane, you know, and like man, that's what I mean, bro. That's the kind of meaningful work that I think a lot of people think of when they're thinking law. But I think my friend is definitely like that, man. I mean, I know they're with NAB and everything, but you know, they've always been very critical of anything that's unconstitutional. And even though they're like you know, practicing Muslim and everything, like they're very like, you know, even have many like religious people in their family. But when they looked at Zia-ul-Haq's like rule, where it was more of like this is something that's being imposed on people, you know, and it's being done in violation of the Constitution.
Yeah.
Where, you know, you have when you have a violation at the very top of the law, you know, like something that's like the very foundation of the country, and you know, if even that is not sacred anymore, then, you know, like what is?
I agree, man, but it also like kind of annoys me that constitutional law is kind of very limited in scope. You know what I mean? The reading of the Constitution is not that it's not too diverse. It's not got so many pages to it. तो यार जितने ये Supreme Court तक cases आ जाते हैं, it should be much easier to pass decisions on these, because like, you know, the criminal law is large and there's a bunch of permutations, but constitutional law is pretty easy. Even the United States Constitution, with all the amendments that it has to it, is still very minimal, man.
It is.
But with time, you know, like Antonin Scalia and RBG were at two different ends of the political spectrum. With time, I've moved slightly towards Scalia, you know what I mean? And in terms of constitutional law, it's always been something that I've been interested in, but, you know, not so many people will choose that as their, you know, purpose in life or in law school. But यार एक और बात था कि when I was in high school I read this book by Crichton and it has a line that says, you know, 1 in every 10 people in America is a lawyer. And outside the C14 there are a bunch of nalayak lawyers कि जो पर्सनल एक्सीडेंट वाला लॉयर है, जो बिलबोर्ड पर होता है, ये सब लॉयर्स है. तो
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल
उस तरीके की भी काफी होते हैं यार.
You remember Saul Goodman, right?
Better Call Saul. But उस तरीके के भी काफी होते हैं, मगर वो भी यार अगर ये प्री लॉ करने जरूर है तो that's just a waste of time, you know. Like शायद मेरे अल्साद से मैं वो लॉयर तो बन सकता भाई.
नहीं नहीं यार, ये तो मैं समझ सकता हूँ, you know, I mean, लेकिन वो टाइप के लॉयर पे यार, I think any kind of like dealing with like statutes and like just you know, very dry material all the time.
Yeah,
which all of law, right? Like all of law is pretty dry when you think about it.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone, and I think it would, even if you're someone who like is passionate about the subject and finds it interesting. When you're just dealing with that kind of stuff all the time, it would get depressing, you know. And
I agree.
And the other thing is, man, like when you think about like what are the times in your life when you need a lawyer, you know, it's never a good time in your life, you know.
सही.
तो आमतौर पे आप जिन लोगों से के इर्द गिर्द आप काम कर रहे होते हो, everyone's in like a conflictual situation. कि अक्सर ऐसे में लॉयर की जरूरत होती है when there's like some kind of conflict, you know, जब कुछ इख्तिलाफ होता है और आपको, you know, you need a lawyer to like to represent you. So you're usually just surrounded by like misery and conflict and like bitterness, you know. That's just the setting that you work in by definition.
सही है.
For all of these reasons, man, it makes so much sense that job satisfaction would be low.
Yeah.
And even, man, I think the best advice, like if lawyers themselves are saying, okay, you know, agar hum dobara kar sakte to we wouldn't do it. That is the biggest thing for me, man. If like the insiders are telling you to not come inside and to get out while you can, then like you know, I don't need to take anyone else's advice, you know, like that's all the advice I need.
यार ये जो हर शादीशुदा बंदा भी मुझे यही कहता है.
यार लेकिन शादीशुदा मतलब बहुत से खुश भी हैं, you know, और काफी एक जोक सा बन गया है, so people just say it, you know what I mean.
मगर
it's like WhatsApp पे ये जोक कराते हैं, you know.
यार वाकई मगर जो लॉयर्स के हिसाब से क्या कहने थे यार कि भूल गया. Shit. There is something I wanted. Like, in terms of suits, do you really think like somebody like Mike would be, you know, that much better of a lawyer? It doesn't make too much sense to me.
It doesn't, man. And even like actual lawyers, like I've seen many critiques of like suits from real life lawyers, including my friend. Because yeah, I mean he practices law in Pakistan, but his law education and everything has been overseas.
In the UK, right?
Yeah, LLB in the UK and then LLM in Australia, like which is why he was there.
Nice.
And yeah, man, I mean, it transfers over pretty well because, like we discussed, you know, their legal system is very much procedurally operates very much like the British legal system.
Yeah.
So lots of Pakistani students, man, like from rich families, you know, they'll go to the UK to get a law degree, and then they'll come back to Pakistan and practice it there. You know, like he said at his uni, like all. उसके इर्द गिर्द सारे या तो पाकिस्तान से थे या नाइजीरिया से थे, you know, all the law students.
हाँ यार, नाइजीरिया में क्या चल रहा है?
Yeah, Nigeria में, because I think it's a former British colony, right? So बहुत से लोग
मगर वहाँ कौन से law and order है भाई?
वहाँ तो है नहीं यार, लेकिन they moved to the UK, you know, like पढ़ाई के बाद they'll settle there, you know. तो उनका मकसद और होता है, पर जो लॉ एंड ऑर्डर पाकिस्तान में भी है नहीं वैसे, but
वो
lawyers
भी
हैं
सही है,
वहाँ.
वो भी सही है. हाँ यार.
But lawyers, yeah, I mean, they make a lot, you know, because lawyers to चाहिए यार वहाँ खासकर. I mean, if you're in like establishment, you know, like the job of a prosecutor, because I think that's the area that they're in.
Yeah.
Like they're like NAB prosecutors, you know. So those jobs I think are really interesting too, man. Because actually building a case against someone.
Yeah, I've heard you mention this over time. Yeah, but अगर यार आप जॉब सेटिस्फैक्शन की बात करें तो मुझे लगता है कि जज भी काफ़ी अच्छे काम तो कर सकते हैं यार कि you know it's much more stable, they work in the same field, and if you're a judge then I don't know, it's your interpretation of the law, isn't it? It's a much better job to have.
I know what you mean, man. Yeah, definitely it is, man. And it is much more secure as well, you know, like you're in a pretty like good position, and it's a very job, like and I don't know, it is a very like you know, don't get me wrong, there's corruption everywhere, including America.
Yeah.
But it's rare to hear of like judges being compromised, you know.
I agree.
Like it's just at that level of government where, you know, there is like a certain status associated with it too.
Yeah.
And so many people watch that one judge, bro. What's his name? He's like Italian American.
Yeah,
you know? I forget.
Yeah, on TV. God damn, what's his name? I've seen him.
It's like a Judge Judy type of show, you know, and this one time he let a guy off. I mean,
the speeding ticket.
Cut him some slack. And he said like, "Kya naam tha uska?"
Yeah, naam mujhe yaad nahi, magar he let him go for the speeding ticket, right? Because he was going to see.
Yeah, speeding ticket. That's right. And then there's one where he tells him that he's very popular in Pakistan, you know, because it was a Pakistani guy.
No way.
Have you seen that one?
No. What's that about?
Oh, no way. Dude, yeah, I think it was something similar. He cut some slack on the guy, you know. It was like very a reasonable situation. And then he was like, "You won't believe it, but you know, my family's from Pakistan, and they watch you back there too. You know, they're big fans."
No way.
Yeah, man, that's crazy, right?
Absolutely. But I hate the fact that the U.S. law system is so it's so open कि इतने भी set laws नहीं है that you can appeal a parking ticket or a speeding fine, you know. That's just way too much too much opportunities for lawyers, buddy. Like कुछ चीज़ तो मैं मान सकता हूँ, but like you don't need to appeal for everything, you know. I hate the fact that you can sue anybody in the United States, like
exactly.
Yeah,
me too, man.
Yeah, there needs to be set
it just
laws.
creates like needless conflict between people, and like just sows the seeds for like conflict and, you know, discord.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. It shouldn't be, you know, I understand that, you know, the United States likes to differ from the world and not have a set, you know, like common law. They don't want to have it, but it's way too much, man. Like the amount of job opportunities that kind of legal system provides for lawyers is the reason why they have so many lawyers.
Exactly, man. That's the reason why it's so like it's a very lucrative profession, you know, because like the smallest things are like suitable offenses or like suitable, you know, like you can go to court for like the smallest of things.
The best example is
even,
you know, suing McDonald's over how hot their coffee is.
I was just thinking of that one, man.
No
but
way.
That one, dude, honestly, like she got like I think 3rd-degree burns from that one, man. You know, like, but then even like frivolous lawsuits, like people will sue someone like their employer because, you know, they felt like they were terminated for valid reasons, let's say, but then they'll sue them just because they felt like you know, they have a personal vendetta against them. And those kinds of things, for sure, man, it definitely creates like that kind of room for conflict. And like even in India, man, with like defamation, for example, you know. Dude, it's routinely used to to
Round up
settle
comedians.
What was that?
Round up comedians.
Round up comedians as well, yeah, or just anyone critical of the establishment, you know. It's routinely used. India and Pakistan both, and it circles back to what we talked about, where our legal systems are very influenced by the UK's. And that's where defamation comes from. Like it wasn't in the Indian Penal Code until the British put it there. The same with Pakistan, you know, it's like a legacy of colonial rule, and it's used in both countries to really like silence any criticism, or to use it to like bully and harass people, you know, or really go after people who are like, you know, that you don't like. Yeah, man, I remember Ali Zafar, right, when there were like allegations against him, you know, like sexual misconduct.
Misha Shafi,
someone like talked about it on their show, and they just said that he's like an alleged sexual assaulter, which is true. You know, he was alleged to have like, you know, done sexual misconduct. But yeah, he actually sued him for defamation. You know, because he's like. Yeah, man, Ali Zafar sued him. Like, no, he didn't win. So, yeah, I mean, he didn't say anything that was untrue, you know, and that I think is like the first condition. But that's the thing. Even if they don't win, the trial becomes the punishment, you know.
I agree, and I'll give this one to the United States, because in the United States it's very hard because of the First Amendment rights to win anything on slander. It's very hard, like.
It is, exactly, dude. You're spot on.
Yeah, landmark rulings have been like Hulk Hogan and a few others, but it's so rare to win a defamation suit.
It's extremely rare, man, and you know, it's the reason why, like, you know, sometimes you can decide where to take someone to court too.
Oh, this is going to get interesting. Jury selection, the precincts where the judges are. This is getting interesting,
Yeah, or even where, like, say it's a crime that's occurring across jurisdictions, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's say someone is making defamatory comments.
Yeah.
But let's say it's happening in a different country, you know?
Yeah.
So you can choose whether you want to sue them there, or like, you know, or like what level you want to sue them in, what jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So often what companies will do, man, like they'll look at, you know, what region is most favorable for this, you know, like what region has the most favorable defamation laws.
Yeah.
Where we're most likely to get a win, and they'll sue them in that jurisdiction.
Yeah,
you know, and for them, man, America is consistently like the least favorable place to sue someone for defamation.
Yeah,
because you know that you're. Like, it's almost a guarantee. Like, it's very highly unlikely that you would win a case there, you know?
Absolutely. And, but even with, I think Suits does a good job of portraying this. But how the jurisdiction that you have your case in affects the ruling is quite interesting in terms of, you know, jury selection. I mean, you don't see juries in other courts either, do you? It's very rare.
Yeah, it's mostly an America thing. Yeah, even in Canada, I don't think they have them for very few trials. There are very few trials where they've had juries.
Yeah.
But jury trials, man, in general, that's just a U.S. thing.
And even when the Constitution says, you know, to be judged by a jury of your peers, it's quite weird, isn't it? Like, you wouldn't want to be judged by a jury of your peers. You care about that?
You know, even with the way they pick juries, though, it's the idea is to get like
the idiots who couldn't skip jury duty.
No, it's like, you know, if there is unanimity among a group of people, then it's like that means, you know, we've come to an agreement. But man, juries do get things wrong, you know, and that is concerning. Like the OJ trial is a perfect example. it's widely accepted at this point that the jury got it wrong.
Yeah.
And this is coming to a difference again between criminal and civil law, right? But so in criminal law you have to prove something beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
For the court to accept it.
Yeah.
So like if someone's accused of a crime, you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they committed the crime.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas if you sue someone in a civil court where there's no criminal charges, there you have to prove on a balance of probabilities. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Which means like even if you establish that it's like 51 to 49 is like is a possibility. Yeah. That would be considered like, a win. Like like you would get a verdict from the judge for on a balance of probabilities. So what happened with OJ, right, is like he won the case in the criminal court
because
so where he was found not guilty because they couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Yeah. They couldn't get a unanimous jury verdict. Yeah. But in the civil court, where his family, the victim's family had sued him, right? They won in the civil court. Because on a balance of probabilities, they were able to prove that he was the culprit, Yeah. And he actually had to pay the family like in the civil court because civil charges you're not going to have jail time as a civil charge, you know, like those are civil penalties where you'll have to pay fine or damages or make it up to like the other party, you know. Yeah. So it was like monetary compensation, but the civil courts found that he actually did do this, you know. Yeah.
But it's interesting, but also at the same time, like, I cannot get the origin story for the need for a jury, you know what I mean? Like, agar judge hote, but I understand because it's very much an interpretation of the law, isn't it? If you have a judge and you have a set of laws, that's fine, right? He's just judging based on that. But if there is no precedent, then you need some... But even a judge would be able to do that, wouldn't you think? What's the need for a jury?
It's a good point, you know, and you would think that, like, a judge would be in a better place to do it, just because...
he's got legal education, yeah.
Exactly, and he's in a position where he can interpret the law. But I think it's also, like, to ensure that there isn't a mistrial, you know, because judges can be compromised, you know?
They do it all the time.
And to ensure that there is some kind of, like, you know, like neutral third party looking at this issue. But then again, man, even juries, like I'm sure juries have been compromised too. You know, you only need to
compromise.
You only need to get the one dot.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they did on The Sopranos,
right? Yeah. Like, yeah. But
the way they intimidated it was so funny that they pay for, like, they see him in a convenience store and they pay for wedding. Yeah. And it's weird, man. Like, imagine, you know, someone threatens you by, like, buying you something, you know?
But it is honestly, it will have an impact on you. But we're almost at the hour mark. What do you want to call this one? I've, like, in terms of, like, Roe versus Wade, it needs to be something legal, like Karsh and FS versus the legal system, something like that.
Yeah, man, that would be it.
Karsh and FS v. law. No.
How about the state versus Karsh and FS?
Nice. I think we've got a winner. So this was season 2, episode 8. The state versus Karsh and FS. We'll see you in the next one.